Well, welcome everybody to our today's Tuesday training that we do every week. And I want to thank everybody for coming. And if you're watching this after the fact, thanks for watching it after. But what we've got today is Jim is going to be talking today about images on your website and how they can be the biggest problem that you have in slowing your website down. Now, that's not the only problem, but it's a big problem, and Jim's going to talk about that. I'll just simply say, we every week we kind of introduce each other. Jim is a daredevil. He's slowed down a little bit of being that daredevil, but still is a daredevil and does things that I'm sure his mom still goes, Jim, don't do that. So, Jim, go ahead.
Well, thanks, Boyd. I appreciate it. And my mom always shook her head and wondered what I was thinking when I did some of the crazy stuff that I did.
Yes.
So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get rolling today. There we go. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So I'm Jim Carroll. I am CEO of E2 Total Solutions. Can you see the whole thing, Boyd? The whole PowerPoint? Okay. So I'm Jim Carroll with E2 Total Solutions. We are a full service search engine optimization and marketing firm. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it today. It is.
Jim.
There we go.
Okay.
Can you see the full screen, Boyd?
I can. It's actually cutting off just below your name before I can see the next words.
That's what I was wondering. We might have to, I'm going to stop the share and restart it.
It's kind of zooming in a little bit.
Can you see that?
Yeah, now I see the whole
Okay.
thing.
There was two versions of the PowerPoint up there. So anyway, we'll have to edit this one, I guess. Anyway, so I'm Jim Carroll with E2 Total Solutions. We are talking about doing SEO specific to your images today. So it's an interesting topic and we'll jump right into it. Now, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a slide that you guys are reasonably familiar with, and I've shown it multiple times, but I'm not going to talk about it at all today. We're going to come back to it in a little while. So just take a quick look at some of those images and know that we're going to come back to it. So you guys are probably familiar with this slide. I show it all the time. I promise that it'll only appear once in this presentation. But what we want to talk about today is not the social media, not the link building, but the on-site content and specific to images. Images are very important to the website. And what I want to mention is I've kind of loaded my quotes up into the front of the presentation. I've been doing that for a couple of weeks, hopefully to grab some of your attention. But Jeff Eisenberg made a statement about SEO.
I got to tell you, I cannot read the white on there.
The white, like
white on yellow.
Tips. Oh, I wondered if that was a terrible color.
Yeah, they're too close to it. If I get real close, and yeah, it's much easier to double your business by doubling your conversion rate than by doubling your traffic. Okay, I can read it, but I had to get real close. It's really hard to read.
Okay.
All
well,
right.
When I put that, I promise it's the only yellow slide in there.
Okay.
But I wanted to say that Jeff Eisenberg is he owns a marketing company out of LA. He's a professional athlete. He's played for a couple of different professional teams. But what his statement is that it's easier to double your business by doubling your conversion rate than it is by doubling your traffic. And that's an interesting statement. If you really think about it, it's easier to double your business by doubling your conversion rate, which is a great idea. We already all get traffic, but now we want to double that conversion rate. So Today's presentation is about images, and I want you to use unique images whenever it's possible. And I have a couple of slides right here at the top. And the first slide, or the first little row there, is all I did was I searched for men's shoes. And then on the second row, I searched for men's red Nike shoes. And those are all images that came up with a Google search. And absolutely, positively, the worst thing that you can do is do a Google search and then grab an image that you want to use from that. So it's the very first statement there is never, never, never still images. And the final search there was from Pixabay. And that's where I went and I searched for men's red Nike shoes. So that's an image that came up. And the important thing there is that Pixabay is royalty-free images. There's all kinds of places that you can go. You can go to Unsplash, you can go to Stencil, you can go to a lot of different places and get royalty-free images, but you never, ever, ever want to do a Google search and then steal that image. There's all kinds of problems that you can get into. I actually know of a company in Colorado that was sued to the point that they went out of business after they stole some images. So this is kind of down the road that we're going down, but I'll tell you exactly how they showed up. They deleted the image from their blog, but there's a path that's created when you put in blog.com or whatever.com /blog/image name. And because they took it down from the blog, they thought that they were completely clean. But because the person that actually owned the rights to that image could find it by going to whatever.com /blog/image name, they proved that image stayed up for like another year, and ultimately ended up suing the company to the point that they went out of business. So do not steal images. It's a terrible, terrible idea when there's so many royalty-free places that you can go. So when we think about optimization or search engine optimization, generally we think of it, the image as an afterthought. And it's kind of sad when you think about it, because it's an enormous element on the page. You guys saw that page that I just showed that we're going to come back to, but it had all those graphic elements. And in this particular page, even though it's just a PowerPoint presentation, think about how much impact that red set of Nike shoes with the Levi's has over the other images that are on this page. So graphically, it's an unbelievably important part of your image. And I mentioned this a couple times during the presentation today, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. And you can say so much with a compelling image. Many of you that probably showed up today saw a compelling image that I posted on social media earlier today. And that was to drive traffic, of course, to the presentation today. So think about that as how important that compelling image really is. So Boyd and I had a conversation at our networking group today, and it was about AVIF images. And most of us are really familiar with formats like a JPEG or a PNG. And that's kind of what our conversation was about this morning, was that when did AVIF ever become like a dominant kind of image presentation? And I think it's up for debate whether it is a very dominant, or it's becoming a very dominant, or it's one of those things that's going to slip by the wayside. But there's lots of formats. There's JPEGs and WebP and JPEG 2000. A lot of different types of images. And the question that kind of comes up, well, why would you switch from one image format to the other? And the programmers that programmed the AVIF actually programmed it so that it's very light. And when I say light, what I mean is the amount of compression or the amount of code that you need to display that image is much smaller. So it's really, really advantageous if you can actually use an AVIF image. Boyd deals a lot more with video, excuse me, than I do. And you guys are all familiar with parallaxing and motion in some of those things. I know that Facebook Images sometimes let you kind of parallax and pan back and forth depending on what's going on with the image. But to have the lighter or the lighter image, which is, I want to say heavier compression, which is ironic, it lets it render much more quickly. The advantage, of course, is that you now start to satisfy the Core Vitals update. Google has put out the Core Vitals update, and that's mostly concerned with the user experience. The user experience is to get you to load more quickly, and you do that with lighter images. Because images are such a major part of most of our web pages, and if they load slowly or they're heavy with a lot of code behind them, then you're not going to rank as high and therefore not have that conversion rate like Mr. Eisenberg was talking about. So having a better compression strategy is a great idea. You also get higher quality with most of the more recent compression strategies. And again, I'm going to emphasize that you make sure that they're royalty free. One thing about the AVIF is that it's also an open source program. So you can actually convert images into the AVIF program, and you can convert them out. If you do a simple Google search for AVIF images or AVIF converters, you're going to see all kinds of converters that are free because they're open source, and then you can convert them in or out of a JPEG or a GIF or PNG, whatever it is that you want to use. So it kind of goes both ways, but be aware that if you're using a native GIF, for example, it's going to be heavier in code than maybe the AVIF. The other thing that I wanted to note is that Google, Amazon, Netflix, and Microsoft all support the AVIF. Netflix in particular is a great one that we care about because they have motion, and so a lot of their focus is on videos, of course, and so they want you to be able to grab that and use that. I'm going to go back up to like the third thing from the bottom, and there's conversation that's going on right now that all of the conversions in AVIF are royalty free because you've now changed it from its original format or version or whatever. I would be very, very careful with that, and maybe Boyd can pipe in if he's got an opinion. But I still would be very, very hesitant if you took a slide out of a Netflix movie and then tried to say, well, this is my original image now. What's your thought, Boyd?
So I know that there are some things with the laws, and I would have to have an attorney look at it, but I suspect that any image in a movie or something like that would still be the movie's image, no matter what format you've converted it to. So while it's an open source program, it doesn't preclude that image was originally part of Universal Studios.
That's my belief as well. But was multiple sources, and that's why I kind of threw it in there with a question mark, is that you've now changed it to the point where it is your own image. So I don't think that that's the case because you didn't go, fly the plane at Top Gun or whatever. But be very, very careful with that because there is information out there that all the AVIF things are royalty free. So
one thing I was going to mention real quick with AVIF, one thing is this works really good for websites, but is not a supported format on almost all of the social media platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they do not support it. I haven't looked into Pinterest, but I know that most of them have not. Now, I haven't looked at YouTube either, and so it might be.
If I think it's supported by Google, so it's probably supported on YouTube. Right. But it's kind of a new, and it's technology, and it's kind of I want to say going through its growing pains. It's not fully accepted, obviously, with the social media not grabbing a hold of it. But it's got some teeth into it, and it's mostly because of the compression is why the websites actually like it. So at any rate, be aware that there's more than just a JPEG or a PNG, and there's other stuff coming.
I'll mention one more thing.
Sure.
I was going to say, one thing I always have learned over the past is don't be the first person to challenge that royalty-free thing. Let others do that.
Exactly.
It will put you out of business. Even if you win, a lot of times it'll put you out of business, because Disney, Marvel, which is of course is a Disney product now, anything to do with Star Wars, anything like that, they will go after you with a vengeance, and they have more attorneys than you have your one.
That is a fact. And that's precisely why I threw that royalty-free question mark up in there. There's information out there that they are royalty-free images, but your two experts right now are both questioning whether that's reality or not. So just be aware of it. And Boyd gave some great advice. Don't be the first one to challenge it, because you'll go broke before Disney does. So just be aware that information's out there. It may or may not be reality, but somebody's floating it, so be careful with that. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was compressing your images. And so there's a variety of tools and a variety of plugins and a variety of different ways to do that. There's an approximation that about 70% of the content on your image can be, I want to say, discarded or reduced. And the way you need to think about it is like this. If you're going to take something to print, generally, it's going to be between 300 and 600 DPI. That's dots per inch. And for it to render on a television screen or a computer screen, it needs to be about 72 DPI. So if you're going to take something that's 600 DPI and reduce it down to 72 DPI, easily you can get under a 70% savings in the pixels that create the image. The advantage there is that it takes so much less time for it to render when the web page is loading, and that helps the optimization in so many ways. The speed that you're going to increase by actually having to upload 70% less data to the website is going to make you much more relevant and faster, which makes you more relevant to the Core Vitals update, which makes Google like you better, which means that you're going to just simply rank better. As I mentioned before, you should use plugins. And so this is kind of an interesting question now, because you've got a plugin on your website that's going to go through and crunch all your images, but plugins are a speed drain on websites. So it's kind of a little bit of a battle, one over the other. Do you want the plugin that just automatically does it and saves you some time? Or do you want that plugin in the website because it actually slows you down? It's what we call heavy. And so plugins, some of them tend to be very heavy. And so we're going to get to this a little bit more, but you might want to do two things. You might want to determine the dimension approximate the dimension as best you can, and then change that offline and then upload it to the site. That will avoid basically having plugins that drain your speed, but it does give you the advantage of having speed because the images are less heavy. So that again satisfies the Core Vitals need for speed and makes Google like you a little bit better. So that leads us into the next slide, really. And if you want to talk about core dimensions, this is the place we will do. I need to move some things so I can see it all. So this particular website gets a desktop speed analysis 0 out of 100. So out of 100 possible points, it's scored at 0. And I want to look at the time differences here. From the first content, this site, by the way, loaded really slow, or not really slow, but slow comparatively speaking. Most of the sites that rank on the first page of Google, the entire first page will load in about 0.7, 0.8 seconds. So this was considered slow by this particular algorithm or whatever that I ran it against. So 11 or 1.1 seconds was to the first paint. Time to see the main content was 1.2 seconds, but to see all the content was 8.2 seconds. So the difference really between 1.1 seconds and 8.2 seconds is what's making this site, or one of the major things that's making this site get a 0 ranking in the Core Vitals update. And so what we're measuring is from first paint to final paint, and that affects your Core Vitals. The images and what is happening, and you've all seen this, you load something on your phone, and we kind of talk about two different things. We're talking about on your computer and on your phone. Remember that Google has gone to 100% mobile first algorithm. So when you see things bouncing around on your screen and resizing themselves and changing those dimensions, that's what we're calling from first paint. When that image loads and then it has to navigate itself and resize itself to that image or to that screen, that's the final paint. And it's interesting because not everybody has the same phone. Not everybody even has the same computer. So if you're using a iPad versus a computer versus a phone, that image is designed or programmed basically to render the best that we can and show all of that web page that we're trying to display. And so you see that move around, and by actually setting the dimensions or clarifying the dimension, you're going to get better results both in your ranking, your search engine optimization, and if you have already kind of crushed that image and sized it to be the appropriate thing, you're going to be much faster and make Google a lot happier. So there's something that we refer to as lazy loading images, and they're basically lighter in weight. But what we want to do is we want to load things that we can actually off the screen. So what you want to do is have your image load on the first, and this is a little bit tough, but so if you're one of the first 10 pages on Google search, those images load right away. They're all crunched, they're all load quickly. And then there's images that happen on the second or third pages, or if you scroll down that page. And what we want those images to do is do something like a lazy load. And a lazy load, just so you know, like 9 out of 10 first page images, or the first 10 images that load on Google, there's backside loading of those images. So what Google does is it renders the most popular search results, and then pages that are subsequent pages to that, Google loads in the background. So as we're all scrolling through our computers or scrolling through the search, Google's actually on the first 10 searches loading those pages in the background. If you want to go down to number 9 and click on number 9, it's probably already loaded those images because it was loading them during the time it took you to scroll from 1 through 8, and you got to 9. If you determined that was your best search, then you clicked on that, but it renders immediately because those images are already loaded. So lazy loading your images is a good idea. There's a variety of different tools that do this. Lazy Load by WP Rocket is a good one. SemiRush, Optimal is a great one. I've never used Lazy Loader or Lazy Loader for videos, but Auto Optimize, they're all good tools. There's a couple on there. This was like the maybe top 8 that I found off of Google, but there's some others that I like. I personally like Tiny PNG and some other ones like that. that will load all of your images, not just PNGs, but they get all of those taken care of in the background. So just like that big old dog right there, you know, take advantage of lazy loading capabilities. So, oops, I went the wrong way. Okay, so adding an alt description doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but what we're trying to do when we do optimization is literally we're trying to satisfy Google. And if we do things that satisfy Google, it helps load things more quickly or move you to the top of that pile. That's the advantage of any good SEO programs, to get you closer to the top of that pile for Google. So if you look at this particular image, this is an image of pancakes. And if you just call it pancakes.png, you know, I guess that's okay. That's not a great description. If you put in pancakes with stack of blueberry pancakes as the description, then that's a much better description, because when the spiders crawl the website, they're going to index that page and say, listed on this page is an image. This image is a stack of pancakes with sugar poured over them. You know, blueberry pancakes with sugar poured over them. That's a good description. Google's going to understand exactly what that is. And so then if you're competing against pancakes.png or blueberry pancakes with sugar poured over them, Google's going to understand the image, know what the image is, and then render it a little bit higher in that search. This is a picture. The middle picture is a picture out of it's out of the WordPress platform, or you know, I guess WordPress platform is the best way to state it. This can change a little bit based on themes, but this is a WordPress solution. So you can see that the virus, this is a picture of the virus, the COVID-19, and then in the alt description we put virus, and then the title, it's called a virus. The caption, we put COVID-19, and then in the description we called it, this is an enlarged image of COVID-19 virus taken with a, you know, micron, whatever, microscope. So there was a lot of information there that Google could actually ascertain from this photo. So this probably should be a little bit more like, you know, COVID-19 virus or something like that. But that's how I pulled this right out of a website. So that's an interesting little thing. And for those of you that want to know what it looks like, here's actually what the code in the back of the website looks like. And in many cases, you're going to want, actually, if you can't go into WordPress and just create that alt description yourself, or that alt text, just have your programmer go in and fix all those images, give all those meta descriptions and alt text to all of your images, and it's going to satisfy Google's need to know what they are. I keep going the wrong way. My thing is interesting today. So schema markup. And for those of you that don't know, a schema markup is basically a plan. And schema is a fancy word for plan. And so a database schema is a logical way to configure all of the parts of the relationship inside of a database. So in these couple of photos here, this is the beginnings of a plan. And so you sketch out what you want to work, how you want it to work, when you want it to work. And then basically when you put it into implementation, you're going to want to take the logical parts of that plan and stitch them all together. So that it can be represented as that your database is having integrity. This is something that Google crawls and looks at. They look at the database associated with your website, and if there's no rhyme or reason to the database, then it punishes you. Remember, I've said before that there's only reward and punishment in the Google world. And if there's no ability for Google to ascertain a logical schema or a logical plan to that database, or how that database is configured, then it punishes you. So having a plan like this and then a logical scheme is going to let Google know that you have integrity, is the term that we use. inside of that database. So use a schema markup language that will actually let it know that this is where the images belong, this is what they're called, this is why they're there. And then that's all associated with the database that makes sense, that will help rank your site. So I know that that's a little bit off topic as far as images go, but it was important for me to explain that the images have to go someplace, they have to be someplace, and there should be a logical reason why they are. So we spoke about this a little bit earlier, and I don't want you guys to go in and steal images. That's absolutely a bad thing. But there's also things you can do to protect your images, and most people are unaware of this. You can actually put into the code that you are the author or the creator of this particular image, and that can be put right into the code that appears on the back side of the site. You can put in something that's called a copyright notice. That copyright notice tells Google and all the other users, if they look in the code, where that you took that picture and that it's licensed and that you're copywriting it and protecting it with the copyright. And then, of course, the source. Excuse me, I got ahead of myself. The source is where you took that picture, and the link to the website that it's if you took it from someplace, you want to give that author credit. If you were an original author, then you need to give yourself credit and tell them that it's being copyrighted. So there's going to be the case, if you are really image intensive, that somebody's just going to go ahead and steal your images anyway. But if you're protecting them, Google's still going to consider you the actual owner of that, and then any legal ramifications or whatever happen. I mean, it would be unusual for anybody other than Adobe or Shutterstock to go after anybody, but at least you're known as the user, and Google will recognize you as the original user and the original photographer, the owner of that original image. And so do try and protect yourself from the theft or having your images stolen. So image audits are an integral part of every website that we take on. And so we audit them on a regular basis. We audit them for speed. We audit them for a lot of different things. Images are always the biggest pain in the butt, because even a real small image in some cases has to download so much data for that image to render that it's not really compatible with a high-speed website. So crunching all the things that was spoken about up to this point, as far as crunching your images, as far as using the dimension, all of those things come into play when we do our image audits. And the image audit this is actually a image audit out of I want to say Google. I think it was over here. Oh, Google Page Speed Insights, excuse me. So this is what an image audit looks like. And there's only one little green dot here. Everything else was a negative. And this was, I want to point out that you do image audits for mobile, and it's a separate image audit for your desktop. And so you can, this graphic isn't flexible, but you can actually bounce back and forth between mobile and desktop and see how you're ranking. This is a list of programs that actually do image audits. And I was looking down the list when I was putting this presentation together, and probably every one of them except one or two I've used at one point or another. There's some that I absolutely swear by. SEMrush is good, SpyFu's good, Screaming Frog's good, Ahrefs is good, GT Matrix, we use on a regular basis. The Google Search Console, that's our very first search that we ever do. The Page Speed Insights we get to eventually after we start optimizing. So almost that entire list of sites or places that you can download an image audit or an audit, a site audit, also includes image audits. So that tells you how important all of the images are really to the website, to the speed, to all the things that we've been talking about. So by all means, you know, pick one of these. You know, Google is just the top-notch search console. And I'm going to tell you a quick story about that. There used to be a product called Urchin, and Urchin was native to my servers. And when I owned my hosting company, it sat on my servers. And then as long as traffic came in, I could tell everything about that viewer and where he came from, what his IP address, what parts of my website he was going to, you know, if it was at a referral from a social media. All these really cool things were happening with Urchin, and it was giving me great information that I could then go to my client and say, look, this is what's happening on your website. This is how, you know, your visitors were getting there. This is how long they stayed. I mean, all this super great information, and it gave me an advantage, I think, to all of my competitors. And the one trick was that it was native to my servers. The site had to live on my servers, and the Urchin product had to live on my servers, and it was expensive. I mean, I want to tell you several, you know, a couple $1,000s a month is what I was paying to have Urchin sit on my servers and then service my clients and give them this great information. Well, one day, Google just bought Urchin, and Urchin was a company out of Texas. I remember one day it was like shut down. We're not going to, you know, support this anymore. And maybe 2 weeks later, Google Search Console just appeared, and it was free. And then all of a sudden, you didn't really have to have the site native on your servers, or the product native on your servers. And it completely kind of destroyed my one part of my advantage of helping people understand information about how traffic got to their sites and where they went and how long it took to load, and all of those things were no longer an advantage because Google just bought the product. That's a typical scenario as far as Google goes, is if they're a competitor. In a lot of cases, they just buy them outright. But I'm telling you, this list is a great list. Hopefully you guys did a screen grab of it or something. But the ones that I love are Google Search Console and Page Speed Insights. There's a couple of others I like. GT Metrics is, you know, really awesome. So anyway, be sure that you do your image audits and you do your website audits. So there's some great information about that. Okay, we're going to come back to this. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm having to use my mouse today. My keyboard's not reacting the way that I want. So this is the first image that I typically show in a presentation. And it's got a lot of things that are kind of compelling to me. You know, I can go through this. This is my crazy life that Boyd was talking about a little bit earlier. And for those of you that don't know, I have a little over 4,000 skydives. And so there's a picture jumping out of a plane in Arizona. That big record attempt is also down in Arizona. So, you know, the picture to the left of it, let's say I'm scuba diving with sharks. Below that, there's a picture of, you know, say out sailing. All of these are really, really dramatic. And so, you know, to me, they are impactful, and that each one of them carry a little story. But that skydiving image right there at the very top, that's an impactful image that catches people's attention, that holds them to your website. Some of these other images, this Buddhist image is impactful, and that might hold somebody's attention. The Christmas image, that's actually my this cabin right up here. So, you know, at least to me, they're pretty impactful, but I tried to pick images that will be impactful to you guys. This is when I lived in Hawaii. This is my at the end of my driveway of this cabin. This is actually a couple of moose that just decided to wander across my driveway. This bear is actually in my garage, and I'm the one that took that picture. So, you know, all of these I think are relevant to me, but certainly they're designed to be eye-catching. When I give a presentation, I put this big slide up and let everybody see all of the things, the craziness that I've done, because I think they're going to be impactful. And that's why you choose an image, is for it to have an impact and catch the attention and keep them there. Change that decreases your bounce rate. It increases your time on site. So using images appropriately is the appropriate thing to do. However, you do that, if it's just, and I don't know what's boring to somebody, but maybe a candle is just a boring thing. But if you have a candle with a bunch of Christmas stuff around it and a roaring fire, then that is maybe more impactful than just a candle. So choose your images very carefully. Make sure that they're impactful. Make sure that they catch somebody's attention, and then they compel them to dig deeper into the site. So that's what we want to do with our images after, and then the hard work kind of begins. Once you've chosen that image, then crunch it, then figure out the dimensions, then make sure that it's yours, and it's not being stolen or reused by somebody nefariously. There's a lot of things that go on with images and search engine optimization. So in that vein, I want to do my normal little spiel and help you guys out. There's a site called SEO In 360. And there's a couple of products on there that I thought you might find compelling. First of all, there's the image optimizer, which helps you compress images. So you can buy that for $15. There's a page speed checker, which helps you kind of recognize the speed of those images or the speed that they're downloading. The Moz rank is a checker that helps you determine page authority and domain authority. That will help you, obviously the page, the higher it ranks, the better. So that kind of helps you understand where you sit with that. The Alexa rank checker, helps you determine the popularity of a site. So any one of those or all of those together really can help you understand how your SEO is working for you. They range in price basically from $12 to $19. So we tried to make them as affordable and low cost as we could. So there's a couple of products. There's over 100 products there, and you can get it there by going to http://seoin360.com, and there's lots of products there. So check those out. Next to last slide I want to say is that you guys have all seen me say in the past, and I've got a kind of a cool picture of waters dropping in, or droplets dropping in water, and all the circles are interacting with each other. And I kind of along that same vein have some water droplets here, and those water droplets actually make this great big ocean. It's not any one individual droplet, but it's all of this ocean interacting together that has the power to carve out this beach or this beach cave and effectively make a significant change to Mother Nature. So what I want to say is that by having those water droplets interacting and working together, there's a lot of power. And so I've referred to it in the past as circles within circles working together. It's not just your image optimization. It's not just your social media. It's the images working in context with the content on your site. And then do you follow up with a social media post that either uses the same image or at least the same context of what it is you're trying to do. So I was impressed with this photo of the ocean. You guys, a lot of you know me as a mountain guy, but I've lived in Hawaii, so I've spent some time at the ocean as well. But think of that as like individual droplets working together to make the ocean that work together to create this beautiful beach cave. So that's what I like to say. And then it's not any one of these things, it's all of these things working together. Thank you very much. And I see Boyd's popped back in. So Boyd, what do you think?
I think that was very good. You talked a lot about things that are important to know, especially when we were talking about the new type of things that are out there, like ATIV. Mm-hmm. It's really important to know that there are changes always happening, And so that's what this whole thing is about. Our trainings is, as changes come, we try to bring those to you. So yes, it's very, very
Yeah, and you said something that was compelling, and it's worthy of repeating, and that is, don't be the first to try everything that's new that comes out. And when I put these shows together, the presentations, I love doing it, and I love finding out about new things and figuring out new things. But I get excited on that side of, hey, there's new stuff that's going on. And you kind of brought it all back to reality and said, don't be the first to try it.
Well, I used to work in the computer industry, and whenever we brought out something new, it was called the bleeding edge, and because a lot of times it works, sometimes it doesn't. But one of the other things was, like in the case of AMD processors, and there were 3 other processors that came out to compete with Intel. And Intel really went after all these companies big time and said, you're using our technology and blah, blah, blah. AMD knew what they were doing when they brought it out. The other 2 companies, Cyrex was one of them. They did not, and they did not have their ducks in a row and have the attorneys that could withstand what Intel brought to them. Cyrex did have a product that would have, it was different enough, but Intel just kept pushing and pushing, and it kept costing and costing, and they ended up folding because of that. And I've seen that over and over with all kinds of different technologies as they come out. So in the case of like this, this new, is this actually your image that now that you converted it or not? Let somebody else take that to court against Disney or Paramount or any of the other big studios or anyone else that is, like in the case of Shutterstock, they have 5 attorneys that do nothing but serve people have people served to say, you've gone up against us, and we're going to, you got to pay us for using that image.
I think that a couple of those images actually own part of Shutterstock. So that's their business model, is to sue you for using their images. So Be careful. Don't use Shutterstock. Well, I don't want to say don't use them, but if you do use them,
if you're going to use them, make sure you pay for them.
Pay the royalty. That's right.
It's a lot cheaper. I'll tell you, I used to run a community newspaper, and we had one of our writers one time. We were talking about this field that was going to be taken away and made into homes and everything, and a lot of the neighbors didn't want that. The lady that was writing the story went and found an image online, and we thought it was that she had taken the photo. We posted it in our newspaper, posted it up online, and then a few weeks later we get a little cease and desist letter from Shutterstock saying that's our image. You need to take it down. You need to pay us $1,200 for using our image without paying the $200 we were going to charge you at first.
Yeah.
So just be careful. And we did. We went through our attorneys, and they said, yeah, that's somebody has gone to Google and found the image, and then they used it.
Yeah, be super careful. And I hate to say it, but grab your camera and go out and take some of your own images.
Our cameras today are taking images. Now there's a few cameras, that don't do as good, but most cameras or most phones do a great job of taking the right pictures.
Yep. Well, that's it. Thanks for coming, everyone. And tell us what's coming up in the show in next couple of weeks.
So next week, I'm going to be talking about making sure you understand who your customers really are, so that why did they decide to buy from you? What drew them to you? What is the thing that they love the most? And then it's getting to know those customers. So then when you get ready to go after prospects, you'll know exactly what brought your customers to you, which will probably bring those same type of people as prospects to you. And so we're going to be talking about getting to know your customers so you'll be able to talk better and get more prospects.
Well, I know that we've both presented on this before, even as a team, and that is it's much easier to do more business with the customers you've got.
That's true.
Than go out and find new customers all the time. So we want to create that funnel and use those, or not use those customers, sell to those customers more often. And that's a much more cost-effective way of increasing your sales than just like that quote said earlier in the show, double your conversion rates as opposed to going and finding double the clients.
Yeah, more traffic.
Yep.
So one thing I'm going to also mention here is we do have our podcast that goes on every week. On Mondays, it's all about sales and marketing. On Wednesday, it's all about taking your business to the next level. We do have coaches and business owners that have done so that are going to be teaching you there. And on Fridays, it's all about entrepreneurship. So we teach people how to either start a business, how to start a business, or about the things that they wish they had known before they started a business.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, everyone. That's been a great show today, and we hope to see you on our podcast and the same time next week for another instructional video.
Thank you.